Welcome to the Shutter Saga Podcast. I'm your host, Marvin Blue. Join me each week as we dive into amazing conversations with some of our industry's top leaders. We will talk about photography, business, and most of all, share the stories that have laid the foundation to our journey in this world we call photography. A couple of ways to support the show is to like, subscribe, and share the show with others. Leave those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and if you're a fan of seeing us live, we are on YouTube. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Again, thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. Welcome welcome on. It's another beautiful week, another beautiful day. It's a great day to be great. It's the Shutter Saga Podcast. Once again, thank you for tuning in. My guest this week is none other than the incomparable Tanya Smith, coming to us from Ontario, Canada, not California.
Canada, yes.
Canada.
Big difference.
She opened up her schedule today, decided she'd have a conversation with us, talk boudoir, talk photography, talk a little bit of everything. But we hit it off right now. Tanya, thank you so much for coming in today.
Oh, amazing. Thank you for having me, Marvin. I love it.
It's my pleasure, my pleasure. So let's dive right into it. We're coming fresh off like the summit the Mastery Summit back a little over 2 months now it's been about. So we're coming out that high. How was that?
Yeah, it was in March. It was a whirlwind. It was the first time I ever did it. I knew it would be a lot of work, but I didn't quite know it was going to be that much work. But yeah, it kind of took up all of my time for quite a few months. But it was amazing. Like, I loved it. I got such great feedback from all the attendees. All the speakers loved it. They're all asking me to come back. So it was great. And I'm doing it again in August. So I'm working on that now, which is great.
Nice. And in case anyone doesn't know the history between Tanya and I, when I was getting a lot of inquiries for boudoir for my brides, I was like trying to reach out, like, who can I learn from? Who can I, get tips and tricks from, and just kind of continue to better a new genre. And so, as I was kind of building my foundation, come across Tanya Smith. She comes on my radar. And the funny thing about it is we ride on it was Shutterfest last year.
That's
We're riding
right.
in a car together, and I don't even realize it's Tanya Smith. And the whole time I'm like shooting messages to her, not realize I'm sitting next to her, which was hilarious. So it was kind of like one of those, oh, wow. And on internet, we're like great friends. And in real life, I meet her for the first time, don't even realize I'm sitting next to her. So it's hilarious.
Yeah, that was too funny. Yeah, we were hanging out. I don't remember where we were going for dinner, I think.
I just remember a bunch of us hopped in the car and said, let's go. I think we were going to grab dinner, and I just hopped in someone's car and it's like, I'm in, because I was starving that day.
Yes.
And then I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm trying to rearrange my schedule and what classes I can take. And I was trying to get into your class, but then I had obligations for one of the other speakers. So I was just like, hey, I'm going to miss your class, but can I like pick your brain or whatever? It was just all this back and forth. And then somebody goes, dude, I can't believe I'm going to have dinner with Tanya Smith. I said, huh? And then that's when I realized, like, oh shit, she's right next to me. I thought we were trying to play it cool, like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, you can pick my brain at dinner.
But I mean, just being a given person and just like sharing your knowledge, which I love, is like the no gatekeeping thing that I love about you. You just you're willing to share everything. So let me ask you, we obviously want to talk about your history of photography, but I want to go into, let's talk about education first, because obviously that's where I met you from first. What was it about education or the education in the industry that prompted you to take that stand and create that platform that you created?
Yeah, I think I started my boudoir business in 2011. And I think, there's a few people that really helped me out. And again, about the gatekeeping. One of them is a local photographer who was in my building where I had my studio. And I was just kind of like, wow, like, look at your space and look what you've done. And, how did you do it? And he was really generous with his time. And I thought, you know what? That was very cool. Like, it's a lot to sit down. I think it was 2 hours, and he gave me, a lot of information and how he does stuff. And I thought, I'm going to pay that shit forward, because that was awesome and super helpful. So, and I started talking to people the same way. Local photographers would come and chat with me, and I would help them out. But I'm a talker, as you probably already know, and I could go on forever. And I could see some of these people I was talking to, they were just, the drinking from the fire hose thing. They're like, this is too much. And it was also kind of tiring for me too. I was shooting 2 times a week, and I didn't want to take away from shooting to be talking to people, and I kept repeating myself. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put something online. I was thinking, at the time, an ebook or something. Like I didn't even know what to do. But I did a lot of investigating, and now that's kind of my second job. I have two businesses, right? The shooting and the education, and I love them both. I think they're both amazing for different reasons, and I really enjoy teaching, and I enjoy seeing that light bulb moment go off for someone, and then they're like, "Oh my God, it worked! I just got a $7,000 sale. I just got a $2,000 sale," and I was like, it's just like such a great feeling.
Now, are you strictly boudoir? Or is that just like what you're known for the most, or do you dabble into other genres?
Yeah, no, I call myself a woman's portrait photographer. So I will do the three B's, which is boudoir, beauty, and branding. But 95% of what I shoot is boudoir, just because that's what I like the most. I like shooting that the most. I like the reaction you get from showing a woman her boudoir photos, and that's what I show the most. So that's what I get booked for. But I will do, branding for women. I don't shoot kids. I don't shoot babies. I sure as hell don't shoot weddings. I would not like to do that. But yeah, I don't want a job. I want something that I really enjoy doing, and boudoir is it.
Nice. Now, I did put it out there to a few of my friends that I was getting you on the podcast, which everyone got excited about. So,
Yay.
Dave, one of the questions was, what do you shoot with as far as what camera brand?
What camera? I'm Nikon.
You're
Not for
Nikon.
any
Oh, okay.
reason, just because it was the first one I was gifted when my babies were born, and that's the one I know how to use. So I've just kind of, evolved from there.
I find out as the show's growing, they go, you don't ask enough of what brand people are using. You're like asking all these, and then you're like, well, I don't know if they're using my brand, and people want to know. So it's like I now make it a point to ask everybody what they're using, and then of course make fun of them if they're not Canon.
Yes,
Even though
exactly.
I got my start with Nikon with a crop sensor camera that I bought at Best Buy, and then just as
Mine was a
time
crop
evolved,
too. Yeah.
yep. Then you just how good did it feel when you first? So how long have you been a shooter? Before I ask this next question,
How long have I been shooting?
yeah, photography. Yeah.
2011.
Okay, so you're
Yeah.
going 10. So you're past the
Well,
10-year mark.
I shouldn't say that. That's when I started my business. I picked up my crop sensor, my D40 Nikon. It
Okay.
wasn't even the D90. It was the D40 when my kids were born, which was, a long time ago. But I started shooting them just for, myself. And then I started doing some art. I actually did some landscapes, and then
Okay.
I blew them up and, painted over them. And I was doing like painting and art shows, and I loved it. Um, and then I kind of fell into boudoir by accident, but I didn't really even want to ever shoot people. I was just like, I just want to photograph landscapes and still lives and stuff like that.
So when was it when you had kind of your aha moment that this is kind of gone from I got a camera to take pictures of the kids to now making a full-fledged career out of this?
Oh, that's a story and a half. How much time do we have? Um,
How much time you
I,
got? We love this is what it's
yeah,
all about, the stories that got us to the dance.
beautiful. Okay. So I was, I was an artist, a mixed media artist. And then I was going through a divorce. And so I was looking at either going back to work in the corporate world, which is where I came from with corporate banking, or making this photography thing work. So I started shooting boudoir when I had my own boudoir session, right when I got divorced, and it was the reason that most of my clients come to me. There's a big life change. And so I was doing it for me, and I found a boudoir photographer. I had actually never heard of it. It popped up on WagJag, or remember those it would pop up and you get
I
like,
was in the Craigslist era, so that might be even before my time.
yeah. So it was like, a huge discount. And I'm like, what is this boudoir photography? And I talked to her, and she was amazing. So I booked it, and well, we know what boudoir does for women. It was awesome. I loved it. I showed my girlfriends, and they're like, well, can you do my photos? I'm like, no, dude, I don't shoot people. I do landscapes. And they go, yeah, but you have a camera. Take these for me. And I kept saying no. I had no interest. And my one friend, who I was literally just chatting with her, Jackie, she's coming over tomorrow. She's gorgeous. She's a model. She's been a model since she was 19. And I'm like, I'll do it for her. How hard can it be? Right? She's gorgeous already. It can't be that hard. And so I did some shots. I kind of tried to do what the other photographer did to me with me. And her photos were terrible. Like, I made somebody who is stunning in real life look horrendous. It was awful. And I didn't even show them to her. I said they didn't turn out or whatever. And that was it. I thought, yeah, see, I knew I couldn't do this. This is not for me. And it was months and months later, I found it on my hard drive. And I said, "Oh, let me take a look at these." And I was a little kinder to myself, and I looked a little more objectively. And I thought, if I just kind of moved over a little bit to the right, and if she bent her leg a little more, this one might actually be good. And I said to her, you know what, let's do it again. And we did. And I took my time, right? As opposed to just like rapid firing
Yeah,
because I was
the
nervous.
frying, yeah, spray and pray as I call it.
Spray and pray, yeah. And also that's such a pain because you have so many photos to go through. So I took my time and I paid attention to what I was looking at. I adjusted myself and adjusted her, which I didn't even do last time. I just kind of went, okay, go. Um, and those photos still sucked really bad, but they weren't as bad. And I showed them to her and she cried. She still has a book, and I laugh because I think I did them on Smug Mug or something, one of like the online things. It's just a terrible book. The printing, the color is terrible. She loved them and still has them, like still looks through them. The very first time. I've since shot her, I don't know, probably 30, 40 times now. But then I got the bug when I saw the reaction. I'm like, wow, hold on. I can do what this person did. And that's how I started it. And I thought, you know what? I can do this. If other people are doing it, I can do it. That's kind of my thing. So I was going through the divorce, and my divorce lawyer, who I just found looking online, he says to me, "You need to get a real job because nobody makes money in photography." And I was like, hold my beer. Like, forget it. I'm doing this. Like, don't tell me I can't do something. I'm doing it. So I really went all in, and I learned from other people, and I bought courses, and I failed a lot. And then I started, getting bookings slowly. And then I sort of figured out, I thought, I came from corporate banking. I know this stuff. I know sales and numbers and pricing and marketing. I know this. So I put aside the creative part a little bit and focused on the business thing. And it kind of took off. And that first year that I really concentrated on making this a real business, I got my sales up to $400,000 in less than 12 months. And I was like, okay, I got this. So yeah, I didn't want to go back to work. I didn't want to leave my kids when I was going through that divorce, and it really sucked. And like, I was like, I need to be home for them. I need to be available. So I made it work because I kind of had to.
Nice. I feel like the lawyer telling you to get a real job kind of put that chip on your shoulder, and I
It
mean
really
those.
did.
I feel like I guess that's where our stories have that parallel too, because like that's exactly what like motivated me early in my career was that constant chip on my shoulder from a principal telling me that I need to stick to teaching and not do that, and then the photographers that were supposed to be the big names in Arizona saying you're not ready, you got a long way to go before you're ever going to be a professional photographer, and just that constant down talk is like, oh, okay, I love that hold my beer. So
Yeah.
definitely that's so when do you feel like your breakthrough, like during that time, when did you see that breakthrough as far as like what was your aha moment in that
Yeah,
in
that
that
was
that era?
I would say that was probably year 4 of
Okay.
me really kind of going, okay, I have to either do this or not. Like I got to make it work. So I think that was honestly the aha moment was like, hold on. Once I sat down literally with pen and paper, I didn't do it online. I didn't do it in a spreadsheet. I took a pen and a paper, and I actually I bet you I have the book here still. And I did my numbers the way I know. Like if you came into me in the bank and we were going over your budgeting, I would turn the paper around and I would ask you all these questions, and I would do it for you. I'm like, why did I not do this for me? So that was the aha moment where I was like, hold on, I could actually make money, and I don't have to shoot 7, 8 times a week. I only have to shoot 2 times a week, and I can make $500,000. And no joke, it's just math. And I think that's when I was like, stop. I was charging $700, and I thought, I need to find these many clients to make the money I want to make. And I thought, but wait, if I charge more, then I don't have to get that many clients. Getting the clients is the hard part. Getting them to pay you is not as hard as finding the actual client. So I think that's the biggest questions I get, right? How do you set your pricing and how do you find clients?
I mean,
So if you get,
especially with you, I guess I hate saying the term niche market because boudoir is considered a niche market versus
sure.
something that I'll shoot more weddings in a year than I'll shoot more boudoir, which I would love it to be the other way around.
Yeah.
But I mean, in a niche market, how your process of like where did you put your energy at to build that?
For marketing, when people ask me that, it's kind of everything. You kind of have to do all of the things at the beginning, and then you'll find out the 6 or 7 things that really work for your client. But I find when you pick your genre and you become a specialist, I mean, specialists can more easily demand a higher price, right? So especially for boudoir, I think this works for any genre, but for boudoir photographers, I don't think a woman, my perfect client, who I know very intimately, I know exactly who she is. It's a past client that I love shooting. She's the person I talk to all the time. Anytime I'm marketing, it's literally Kelly that I'm marketing to, as if she's a friend of mine. Well, she is now, but anything I post, I want to make sure that this is something that Kelly would want to see or read or would be interested in or entertained by or whatever. If you do different genres, you don't have that one person to talk to. So the stuff you're putting out there is kind of for everybody, which sort of means you're for nobody. So when I post things for Kelly, or when I put a newsletter for Kelly or a blog post for Kelly, or go to a show, would Kelly go to this expo or this show? And then that way I know who I'm talking to so that it'll attract that kind of client. So I want a whole bunch of Kellys. Everyone just like her is who I want. So that's who I talk to. I think
So
that's what you asked me.
yeah, I mean, even if you go on a tangent, that's even better because
Okay.
I was telling everybody, so I'm not gonna ask her a bunch of like, it's not gonna be a Q and A session, but if this turns into it, then I'm good with it. So
Okay.
how did you create your Kelly? Because that seems like it's
Oh, yeah. So that's actually a really good question because we always hear people say, find your ICA, which is ideal client avatar, find your perfect client. And at the beginning, I was like, I don't know, a woman. That's who my client is. But so I just kind of, sort of, my client was kind of me, or whoever I thought it was going to be. At the time, actually, it was sort of brides. It was younger. I was kind of targeting brides. So I was doing bridal boudoir, give your groom the sexiest kind of gift you can give him, that kind of stuff. And that was fine. But I also, those weren't the funnest for me to photograph. I liked photographing when I got a woman who was in like her mid 40s, late 30s. She's a mom, her kids are a little bit older, she's starting to realize that I'm not just a mom, I was also a woman before that, and she's trying to find herself. Those clients I could relate to. Those clients were the funnest, they spent the most money, they were easy, and I was like, hold on, my ICA is changing now. I want my ICA to be this person. So first I kind of just was like, this is her, she's a mom, this is her age, this is what she does. And then I found Kelly and I photographed her, and I'm like, this is exactly perfectly who I want to shoot. So it makes it easy when it's an actual person. But I always tell people who take my course and stuff, think of who you want to shoot, photograph. Are we not supposed to say shoot anymore? Think of who you want to photograph and market to that person. And as your business grows, you'll see who your favorite client was, and then that turns into your ideal client, and that's who you talk to. And then it gets easier because literally, what would Kelly want? What does she want to see? And that's really an eye opener, and it really makes marketing easy. So when I'm thinking of going to a bridal show, I don't do them anymore because Kelly doesn't go there, and I want more Kellys. But I did bridal shows in the past. They were really great. I got lots of clients from it. Um, but now I want more Kellys. I want to spend my time shooting the people that I love shooting and that are happy to pay my prices, which are a lot.
and
Yeah.
yes, so we are in an era where you can't say shoot, you have to say photograph or capture now because
Yeah.
apparently that's how you get banned or almost taken off of YouTube before the podcast can even start. So whoever complained that I
Yes.
said the word shoot too much,
Yep.
you can go to hell. Anyways,
Yep. The
tangent
AI,
over.
it targets it,
Yeah.
right? It
Oh
looks
my
for it.
gosh.
So,
I'm like,
hmm
dude, it's a photography podcast. We're gonna say the word shoot a lot. I had to
yeah,
explain myself.
it's
It's
photo
insane.
shoot.
Yes. But so I want to take a, a journey in the creative process because you were mentioning how when you first started, you like many of us were your own worst critic when you did your first shoot with your friend and you hated it, and then you took some time, which we've all gone looked at our work in the past, we hated, and then we look at it and say, well, it was growing. But let's talk about the creative process. How did you grow creatively to get to where you're at today? Because I mean, obviously, it's a journey in itself to get to that one. Slowing down, you mentioned, but um, let's talk about that. I want to, pick your brain on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am not a technical photographer. I tell people that all the time. If you want to learn to make money, I'm your girl. But I'm not techie. I don't buy the latest gear. I'm not a technical photographer. So I shoot mostly natural light just because it's easy, and I'm not the best using artificial light. And I used to be so scared to say that. And whenever we were in circles or groups of photographers, they'd be talking about strobe and off camera flash. And I'd just be like, oh my God, I don't know anything about this. But now I don't care because the photographers are not my clients. My clients love their photos and they buy them. So I realized that was my aha moment I came up with when I was joining all these local groups of photographers, which I have since removed myself from. And unless it's a supportive group, I recommend just get the hell out of there because it is terrible for your creative side. So I put in a beautiful photo. My client cried over it. She bought it and it wasn't a great, like I look at it now and I'm like, okay, it's actually not a great photo. But you blew out the highlights over here. You should put some plants in the corner. But they didn't say anything about her. She was posed perfectly. But they just talked about all the other stuff that only a photographer would know about and care about. And so now that doesn't bother me anymore. So my creative process is, how can I make a woman look good so that she wants to buy it? That's what I do. I don't worry about technical if it's good. And I know sometimes I took it, I'm like, oh crap, that was not good. Like the woman I just had a reveal with yesterday, beautiful pose, and I cut her fingers off, like right here, the worst place, right? Like right, I didn't even cut her hand off. I cut her fingers off. I broke a
You don't
rule.
cut the fingers.
Don't crop in the ankle and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And guess what? She bought it and she freaked when she saw that one. Like it doesn't, I think a lot of photographers, you have to decide what you're doing this for. Are you doing it to win competitions? Different story. Are you doing it to get published? Different story. Are you a commercial photographer? Different story. But if you want to be a working photographer that makes really good money, then all you got to do is make a photo that the people in it look good. That's it. And stop shooting for other photographers and stop asking other photographers what they think about your photos. Like, for the love of God, stop. If that's your jam, if you want to start making money. And I think we sort of get stuck there because we're behind our computer and we're comfortable. And if I just do a little bit more editing, the client doesn't give a crap about the editing. Like they don't care. I go so quick through the editing. Use AI. Go ahead. Use Aftershoot. Edit with that. There's my little Aftershoot little bottle there. Do whatever you have to do to make the process fast and seamless and so that your client is happy. That's it. Learn how to pose. That's what you do. Stop shooting models and learn how to pose. So my creative process that I do is actually my room right next door, which is my where I do like fiber arts and my actual art, and that's my creative outlet because my photography is my business, my work. I want to make money with it.
It's kind of just based on the next question because I had a transitional question. I totally forgot about it, but you did mention like stop shooting the models, and something that I saw this year a lot was and I started putting it out there kind of as a challenge. Is a lot of people were working with models, and I said, work with models is great. You'll get some great images. However, you're going to get a false sense of security if you're not paying attention, because it's one thing to take a great image, but when you have a model that knows how to get to that great image before you do, where did you learn and grow? So, I love the slowing down and, what you were saying, but something I was doing was, shoot non-models or tell the model to not model, to listen to your instructions, to not take over or do any of that. How did you overcome that hurdle? Because I know, especially with Boudoir, it's when you're building your portfolio, when you're young in the game, when you got just a 4-year portfolio, you're just trying to come up. How did you go about overcoming that hurdle and that mindset of taking over and just looking at somebody and saying, how can I make them look good?
Yeah, I actually never shot models at the beginning. What I did was I gave free shoots. So I never offer free shoots. I offer vouchers, and that's a whole thing. So it's basically a gift certificate, right? Where it's like, here's $700, come into my studio and I'll photograph you. So I don't say it's a free shoot. I give them a value so that if they come back to me, they're not going to be like, oh, can I shoot with you again? I want to shoot for free. They know how much I charge because they know that this shoot was worth this much money. So I never ever shot models. I think honestly I can count on one hand the amount of models and the first one being my friend. So I never photographed models, and I just knew, like, for me, I know what looks good. And I think you just have to take yourself out of the emotion of, this is fantastic. I just remember going, oh my God, I have a client. This is so amazing, right? But you have to really do them a service and make them look good. So part of doing a good session with a client is finding out what kind of images they want. So you don't ask them what kind of images they want boudoir for me, but tell me, is there anything that you want me to conceal? Is there anything you want me to enhance? And they'll tell you what they're insecure about. So no matter what, and people might not like this, but no matter what is out there, oh, you have to love yourself, you have to love your body. Nobody is going to buy an image if they're self-conscious of their arms and I took a shot of their arm and it looks bigger than it is. I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to show it to them. So if someone says they're self-conscious of their arms, then I know when I'm posing them not to do straight on arms or do the squish with the arm, and heaven forbid, if I do happen to that still a good photo, I'll liquefy it. And I'm not making her arm smaller, I'm just making it's closest to the camera's biggest, and I squished it. So I made it bigger than it was, so I'll liquefy it. And I know people are going to be like, oh, that's so terrible. I want a woman to buy her photos. And so if she's self-conscious of her arms or her double chin or her tummy, which is literally the three things. That's it, the three things.
So doing something good. I got a boudoir shot next week, so I got to make sure I have it.
Yes. So if you look at the photo and you know damn well it's a good photo, you're like, oh my God, this looks amazing. She is going to see her double chin. Because it's this, and she's not going to buy it. So I shoot to sell. I take the photos because I want them to sell. So that's what I do is I take my time. I think that's the biggest thing. And take the time means before I put the camera up, I look, is there anything weird coming out of the top of her head? Like her feet, if they're bent up. Just move her over so that they're not coming out of the top of her head. Is there something messy behind her that I'm going to have to fix in Photoshop later? Are the bottom of her feet dirty? And then I go, okay, good. Is her bra strap straight? Is all of that good? Now, she doesn't want to see her tummy or her arm. Have I posed her properly? And I'll just go, okay, slide your arm a little bit forward. And I don't say to hide your tummy, of course, but I'll say slide it forward so I can see the girls better, or so that you're not blocking your bra strap or whatever. And from where I'm standing, I just blocked her tummy. So now she's going to buy it. So I think it's just pay attention to what you have and move yourself so that it looks better. You don't have to have her flip-flopping all over the place. Get her in position and then move yourself. And that goes for any genre too. I don't know if this is just for.
Oh, no, it's very true. It works.
Okay, so
it works with weddings. I always say change your angles, change your levels, and change your angles. And you can take one pose and turn it into 20 poses.
Exactly.
And they didn't move. I can do straight on. Then I get the bride's perspective, the groom's perspective.
Yes.
Then I go low, and then I do that same first shot, but now they look even more grandiose because their stature is taller.
Yes.
And the angle looks different, and they have this power pose. And if they're still looking at each other, I kind of have to open up their bodies. Just those little things. And I've applied it to boudoir, so now I'm gotten used to doing I'll have her in the pose, but then change that angle, and then as you said, take pictures of parts of the body that just kind of highlight the sensuality of the subject. So we're putting a lot of work into just elevating that because like I said, I look at your work and I'm just like, I want the goal is I want the art pieces on their walls,
Yes.
Or
yes.
I want the husband to be like, get me this same book, but I need all the pictures she took in this book now. And now I want to buy a second book, or,
Yes.
or what, I want to get a second session with her. I want her to do a second one, but I want her to wear my favorite, shirt in that next session. Just all the types of crazy ideas that'll go about it. But something I want to, transition to was with the state of the industry in kind of the new norm since now that we're in the post-COVID era. What's kept, two questions really is what's kept you motivated during all this? Because you, like I said, you have the goal, you're everyone's goal, which is 10 plus years doing this. But what's kept you motivated during that time, and what keeps you motivated now? And then where do you see the state of our industry in relative to photography, boudoir photography as a whole, or whatever? Where do you see that direction heading with all the innovations of AI cameras getting easier and let's face it, cheaper? The technology is there. It's almost like, it's gone from prosumer to consumer. Now they're selling to the masses versus to the professionals. Where do you see the state of the industry going now? And then what's kept you motivated during all this time?
Yeah, it's not, I mean, I've seen it go through this already before. I've seen it many times. This was, the biggest thing was when we went from from
Mhm.
film to digital, right? And everyone's like, oh my God, everyone's going to, and then it went again when everyone's phone got really well. I don't think this is just progress. This is just, things are moving, things are changing. AI is coming in, which is still not even as big as when film went to digital and we all survived. I think the bottom line, and again, I have never shot commercially. I'm sure it affects that more, but I only teach and I only talk to working photographers who want to make a living out of this. And there will always be somebody who wants to get a good photo of them or their kids or their husband or their family or themselves. And that'll always be out there. And I think if you just talk to the person you want to photograph, you'll always have business. And for you, see what you were just telling me about what you want is you're kind of shooting and taking photos of boudoir for the husband. So who you talk to is different than who I talk to. You're not targeting the 40-year-old mom. I am. You're probably targeting the new bride or the younger woman who is doing this for her significant other. I'm not. I want the woman who is doing it for her. But no matter who you want to photograph and who you're doing this for, um, there's going to be a person. There's so many people in this world and in your area. There's always going to be people who want to have a beautiful photograph of themselves. And that's what we have to remember. And I think we have to stop, like you said, or like I said before, get out of those Facebook groups that are making you feel less than. So they're there, they are, and just get out of them. And I don't let that go on in my group ever. Like if there's someone jumping in going, oh, blah, 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 here's all the negative stuff. It doesn't work. Like I'll talk to them and I don't care. Like I want it to be an uplifting place where you feel like you can have your successful business and there's people here to help you and lift you up. But there's a lot of people who, like, even your experience and mine, that shuts down a lot of people when someone says, especially a lawyer or your friends are like, this is way too much money. I had a friend ask me how I sleep at night charging that much. Like that could have stopped me, but it doesn't because of who I am and because of who you are. It fires us up. But some people it does. So I think know what fires you up and do more of that, and also understand what really brings you down and makes you think that you can't do it, and stop doing that shit. Like stop. If it's what's the thing, you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. It's not just who you hang out with in real life. In fact, it's probably more so who you hang out with online. And that includes what books you listen to, what Facebook groups you're in, what other photographers you listen to. And if they're not saying you can do this, because you can, I mean, it's hard for sure. But I always say business doesn't get easier, you just get better. But hang out with people who uplift you and inspire you to think that you can do this. And I think that's the problem, is a lot of photographers worry what a lot of photographers think. And it's just like, it frustrates me so much. So I think I stay motivated by knowing what motivates me and doing more of that. And that's also means downtime too, right? So I make sure that I'm doing things with my hands and creating with my hands, not photography. That keeps me going too. I make sure I get outside and do a walk every day. So it's things that keep you going. And I think you kind of know what it is for you. Maybe it's choosing not to numb out on Netflix for 5 hours, or YouTube videos, or booze, or whatever it is that is not good for you. And I think we have to do more of that. And then when you see success and when you start seeing like, wow, people are booking with me and spending money with me, that's a motivator for sure.
Yeah. So going in, couple more questions because I know I told you I wasn't gonna take up too much of your time. I did get someone that wanted me to ask, what's been your favorite part about shooting boudoir?
It's definitely the reaction of women. And I did not think that would be as profound as it is for me. Like I knew, like I said, my friend, she cried when she saw them, but she's an emotional crazy chick, and I'm like, yeah, of course she did. But I see these women come into me and they're nervous. Like some of them are physically shaking when I pose their leg, like their leg is shaking. and I see how nervous they are and how vulnerable they are and how much they had to trust me and trust themselves to just book with me. And so, I'm responsible for this. Like, I need to make sure I have a responsibility to make sure that they feel good about themselves. So I want them to see themselves the way other people see them, the way their husband sees them, right? The way people love them see them. And I honestly, I see the difference during the shoot. I'll wait until I get a really good shot straight out of camera, and I'll turn it around and show it to them, and then the whole thing changes, and then they just feel great. They know it's a safe space. They know that, I've got them with the posing. When they leave they feeling like a rock star. And they're nervous again when they come in for their reveal, and then when they see their photos, they're just blown away. And it's just proper posing and proper lighting, right? That really gets the photo and gives them a beautiful photo of themselves. And I think, honestly, that is the biggest, most surprising thing for me that happened. I thought I can just do this as a business. It'll be fun. And it really turned into something that's quite life-changing for a lot of people. And I always say that it changes the way you see yourself, and it really does. And that's the coolest thing ever.
More questions, and then I want to close you out and everything. But the first one was, who were your influences early in your career, and who are you currently influenced by now? And
So
as far
it
as
was definitely,
photographers.
yeah, I started out with Sue Bryce, and it was
Okay.
only because that was the educator out there that I could really find that was shooting, well, glamour, as she calls it. But yeah, so it was her kind of vibe, and I did the whole, tulle skirts, and tried to get into beauty and glamour. But I really like boudoir, and that's where my whole thing went, obviously. So I think it's starting out with Sue Bryce, like a lot, and Marissa Boucher from the Boudoir Divas, who spoke at the last summit, by the way, which was kind of awesome for me. I was sort of fangirling there. I'm like, oh my God, I have Marissa Boucher speaking. It was awesome. She's so lovely too. So it was her at the beginning. And now, I don't know. I don't really get a ton of inspiration from other photographers anymore. And I don't mean that to sound like, oh, I don't need to look at other photographers, but I think I get more out of looking at other things that aren't photography, like textured art and, landscape and the way light hits trees. And like, I think I'm more open to seeing more things that are inspiring. Does that make sense? I'm kind of getting a little woo woo, but I think I get inspired by different beautiful things, and not so much of going, I need to look at other photographers' stuff. Now, there's lots of times where stuff pops up where I'm like, damn, that's good. Like, it's mostly location stuff that I love. So I always look at things and go, ooh, I'd love to photograph a woman here, or I'd love to take, Jackie here and do a shoot here, because I think it's location that I love a lot. And I think maybe that's just because I'm a studio shooter and I have the same space. I don't know, but I'm open to inspiration anywhere. But again, I'm not a technical shooter, so I just mostly go in, make a woman look good. That's what I do, and sell her photos. And then my inspiration comes from, doing actual art stuff on the side.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, when you go places, you see, "Ooh, can I shoot this person here or there, or whatever?" I do the exact same thing, just because the world is my studio. I don't have a, brick and mortar studio. I've
Right.
always, and if I have to do studio work, it's something that I'm renting from a photographer I know, or I'm on Peer Space and I'm trying to find a quick space, or, you know,
Yep.
uh, the one thing I'm not a crazy fan of, and the only reason it happens is because the client does it herself, is when they book a hotel for their boudoir session, and I hate the hotel or something. I'm like, oh God,
Yes.
like I can't make this Holiday Inn look glamorous, but I'm gonna try, and like strip it down to the white sheets, and let's just pray for some magic.
Yeah, and the lighting's so terrible, but that's why you need to bring in your own lights, I
Oh yeah,
guess, when you're doing on
oh yeah.
location.
I bring the strobes for sure,
Yeah.
and I'm playing with constant lights, and doing different things to give me that extra little punch of just creativity and just stand out amongst my peers.
Yeah.
Last question, and then we'll wrap it up. So, what I want to talk about is challenges. What were some of the early challenges you faced, and then do you still face challenges today, as a photographer, as a business owner, just in general,
Oh
like
yeah.
that kind of affect our all? want to bring it
Yeah,
full
honestly, I
circle.
think the biggest challenge is myself. Like, I think it's, you think you get that imposter syndrome, you get that voice in your head, like, who do you think you are? Who's going to listen to you teaching? Who's going to, I remember once I had, it was not good. I was having a bad day and I was like, I don't think I can do this. And I raised my prices. And the first person was like, oh my God, and didn't buy anything. And I'm like, I shouldn't have raised my prices. I knew it. Um, I'm not cut out for this. And same with when I'm doing the education, who's going to listen to me? And I remember saying to my husband once when I got my studio, I think it was 6 or 7 months in the studio. And I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. I have a rent check now that I have to pay. And I said, I don't think I can do this. And he's like, Tanya, you're already doing it. Like, you're doing this. And I think I realized that we are our own worst enemy. We're really hard on ourselves, exactly the way our clients are. Like, my clients are really
True.
tough on themselves, and I can see it. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? And then I do the same thing for me, in the business sense, where I think this photo isn't good enough, or who do I think I am, or how can I teach other photographers, or I don't know all this tech stuff and how can I learn it? But I mean, the thing is you learn it. Like, I think what I recommend is, and I haven't talked about this in a while, and I should probably do a post about it. I have a file on my computer. Actually, Michael Saucer was talking to me about this, and he was saying he's like, look at all these trolls that come out and tell me all this bad stuff, and you're terrible, and you're a terrible photographer. And he saves them all. He thinks it's funny and stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to save the nice stuff. And so in my folder, I have a folder of people telling me I'm great and how I made them feel, and their photos and how it made them feel. I have one now for students telling me, thank you for showing me how to do pricing because I just got this sale. And I'm telling you, when I feel bad and I'm like, I'm going to get a 9 to 5, I can't do this anymore, which happens, on a regular basis still. I go in that folder and I'm like, okay, that's why I do it. This is why I'm actually helping other photographers. I'm actually helping women feel good about themselves. So, and I think that's pretty common, that most of us are pretty critical of ourselves. And when you're self-employed, you're the only person who's giving you feedback. So, sometimes we can be pretty hard on ourselves. So I do recommend you get a nice review from someone, screenshot that. You get someone sending you an email telling you how great you made them feel, screenshot that, and just, pop into that when you need to remind yourself why you're doing it.
And I would say that was the last question, but something when you were talking, something kind of triggered like I can ask this one.
Yeah.
So with all the years you've been in it, and it's very prevalent in our industry, and it seems like you've been it down in this road. How do you overcome imposter syndrome? Because I know you mentioned it more than once, and I know I go through it now, especially with as I go grow from just being the well-known photographer, respect amongst his friends, to hey, I'm going to start a podcast to talk about photography, and and now I'm being compared to other podcast photographies and
Yep.
just other photography podcasts, things like that. And then even with dabbling into teaching, taking on mentoring a few young photographers or people young in their career, and
Yep.
whether it's the 6 or 7 that I'm mentoring, and just trying to give them that guidance to say, hey, these are the pitfalls that I went through. This is how
Yeah.
you can do it and avoid it, so you don't have to go through the same thing I went through. So
That's super
you can
helpful.
capture in 3 years what took me 10 years to get. So how do you
Exactly.
overcome that imposter syndrome as you dabble into these different fields, whether it's the education, the photography,
Yeah.
just in general?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because I would always get people going, oh, just think positive and have positive thoughts. And I'm sorry, but that doesn't work. Like, if you are in that death spiral of, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be doing this. So for teaching, I remember going, I don't know, I was probably 3 years into teaching, had a whole bunch of success stories from students. And then someone posted in a Facebook group about, and this was an educator, and she said, I'm so sick of all these photographers shooting for 1 year and then think they can teach. And then people are like, yeah, I hate that too. And I was like, they're talking about me. I thought for sure, of course they weren't talking about me. I don't even think this person knows I exist. But you start going, that's me. That's what I'm doing. I'm teaching, and and you start doing that. And I think one of my mentors that I had, she was amazing. Jill, she's like, nobody who is further ahead than you is ever going to talk badly about you or criticize you. And it's so true. The only people who do are the people who tried what you're doing and failed, but no matter what, they're below your success. Those are the only people who would say something about you. Nobody would troll you online. who's further ahead than you. Nobody would. So that was really good for me, and that really helped. And also, I do this little trick that I give my inner critic, the person who jumps in still every day. It won't go away. But I give that person a name. So I tell people, and I tell students who ask the same thing, give it a name. Think of somebody in your life that you would never take advice from, whether it's your ex or a sibling or a parent or a friend, somebody that they would say something to you and you'd be like, whatever, like I'm as if I would listen to you. Give that voice, that person's name, and it makes it way easier to kind of go, nope, that's just an Amy thought. That's Amy. And then it's way easier to just not pay attention to it. So I think it's not about thinking more positively. I think it's about saying less negative shit. So if you recognize that you're saying something negative about yourself, then just recognize, okay, that's an Amy thought. That's my person I would never take advice from. But that's an Amy thought, and I'm not going to think that. That's all it is. It's an opinion of Amy. So I don't care about that. So I think you just have to recognize when you have negative thoughts and just kind of dismiss them, because they're not going to go away. You're going to have, there's never going to be a time when you're like, I have no like negative thoughts. You're always going to. You're just going to have different levels of negative thoughts. But as long as you recognize them for what they are and then just dismiss them, it does work. It takes practice, but it does work.
So in conclusion, it's find your Nicole, or find your Nikki's, or no, find your Kellys.
Yeah, find your Kellys. Absolutely, find your
find
Kelly.
your Kellys and fuck Amy, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. That's the bottom line. That's what you got from this whole thing. And that's absolutely perfect. Find your Kellys and fuck Amy. Absolutely.
Yep. And to the people that, have been criticizing the show and everything, I got my cuss meter up. We didn't even go past 5 fucks this episode, which is a new record. So yeah.
Oh, and I was so good. Marvin, I was like being so good. I think I said
we literally, we only got to 6. I was like, we would have, and I would say the early days of this podcast, meanwhile, this is like episode like 15, I think, or whatever. But like in the early days, we dropped the F-bomb like 8 times in the first 5 minutes.
Oh my God. I had to put explicit on mine too. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't even cuss. Like I get through the whole intro, don't even cuss. And then once we get done with the intro, then we drop the F-bombs. Like, cause let's have fun. We're taking this too serious, but.
Yes, exactly.
And fuck Amy.
Yeah, fuck Amy. Oh my God, yes. And it does really help. And then the last thing, everybody know running your own business doesn't get easier, but you just get better.
It did. So. Yeah, I wish it did. Yeah. But no, this is
awesome. It doesn't.
Dude, Tanya, thank you so much for your time today. I don't want to keep you. Thank you for taking time out of your day and just sharing your knowledge and just having this candid conversation, just coming on to the show and having some fun.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we got to do this because you were talking about, I think you talked to me about this since Shutterfest last year, I think.
I said I was, it was just, last year was when it really sparked us. Like, if I had just stuck with my podcast, I'd have had this many episodes and we were joking about it and everything. I'd go, you know what? I'm going to start this. And I spent the rest of the year just thinking about it. And then when I reached out during the fall, I said, I reached out to Michael originally, who's my boy, one of my mentors. And I just said, hey, man, I think about doing a podcast. He was like, bro, I've been thinking about the same thing. I'm like, let's do it. And then he was like, I'll do it with you. And then once we started laying down the foundations, we did the first episode. It was like, okay, life kicked in and he got even busier. And I was like, well, this is my baby. It's something I'm thinking about. I'm going to run with it. And he was like, you can do it without me. You can do it. He goes, enough people. You don't have to worry. Because I was so worried about doing the solo show where it's like, what happens if I don't have a guest or whatever? And he was like, dude, you know everybody and you're cool with everybody and you develop these relationships and, so just take it and run with it. And I've been doing it since. And just for me, it's been therapeutic. This is my love letter to the industry. I always joke the dozens and dozens of followers that I have that, make this their weekly jam. I appreciate it. I love that they listen to it on their way to a work or to a photo shoot or whatever. And it gets them through it. And it's the coolest thing is when it's one of those, it allows my guests to have an audience and the audience get to know them a little bit better, especially when they're your fan and they feel like even more connected to you. Because how many times have we met how we hero worship other photographers and never even got to meet them or get to really know them? We just saw their work and got inspired or got pushed by them and say, that's the person I'm chasing or whatever. But to actually, take away the veil of our, of everything and show a little bit more of our personal side, I thought was super important.
Yeah, and it's just like hanging out. Like this is just us hanging
Exactly.
out as if we were hanging out at one of the conferences, right? And chatting, and it's nice
Absolutely.
because we're solopreneurs and we're not around other people. So it's kind of nice to have like hang out and listen to a chat, right?
And I do want to give you a quick plug. If okay, so if I don't know if it's still
Mm.
available or not, but the Summit Master or Master Summit, I'm going to say it wrong. So the Master Summit was back in March. It was all
Yeah,
online. So for you online learners, this was a great platform. It had, I think it was about, let me see, off the top of my head, I want to say it was about 25, at least 25 plus
it was
instructors.
29,
29.
29
Okay, so
speakers.
I was in
Yeah,
the ballpark, yeah, but I'm
yeah,
still watching. I'm still watching because it was just a wealth of knowledge. It was
yeah.
a knowledge dump. I'm not gonna lie to you,
It
but
was.
dude, totally worth it for the price that we got it for. I mean, you can't go
Yep.
wrong. So, um, if you want to share the information how they can find it, if it's still available for purchase, or
Yeah, for sure. So I have big plans for the Mastery Summit, like big plans. I think it's just going to be really big and it might eventually be in person as well one day. But right now it's the same as an online conference. You get all the inspiration and networking and everything from an in-person conference without the hotel bill and airfare is what I say. So yeah, there's a bunch of speakers and they're all talking about their, zone of genius. It was amazing. So that was the first one in March, and I'm doing it again in August. But at any point, you can go to profitableportraits.com/summit, and it'll tell you when the next one's coming, or you can get on the wait list. But
nice. And I'll make sure I plug all that in the show notes and everything so they can continue to find that. And again,
yeah,
Tanya, thank you so much for your time today. It was awesome to have you and just awesome to talk to you again.
yeah, it was great. Thanks, Marvin.
That's it for this week's show. Again, thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with others. Leave those reviews and check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until then, see you next week.